Even if you're not a writer, I say write your life story because you'll learn so much. And also, it's likely to change your perception of other people who've been in your life.
You are now listening to the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and Maxwell Leadership Certified Trainer, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be getting some tips and techniques to advance yourself coming up next. Today's episode is sponsored by both books, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, and the follow-up bestseller, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Head over to Amazon.com, pick up both books. They are available in a trifecta of paperback, audio, and ebook. Cop all three of both and be on the lookout for another book from yours truly to help podcasters succeed. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the wonderful Going North podcast, GMP, the great, glorious, and glamorous. We got another super special, awesome human for you today, my friends. That's right, indeed. Courtesy of my good buddy, Frank Zakari, baby. That's right, indeed. You know him, you love him. He's been on the show 3 times, and he knows some wonderful, super special, awesome humans because we got a first-time author in the building, baby. That's right, indeed. A first-time author in the building. She finally joined the business of immortality. Let me tell you a bit about her, because she's also herself a mom, a grandmother, a wife, as well as an award-winning author on her first time writing a book. And she's also an SEO-savvy legal industry copywriter. So let's give it up for the DH, the delightful and heavenly Debra Holz. How you doing today, Debra?
I am doing excellent, Dom.
There we go. I guess D comes before E, so excellent. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, so since it's your first time on the podcast, mind filling us a bit on your backstory of how you got to where you are today?
Well, I had a rather dramatic upbringing and difficult, like most people, I suppose. And I suffered from depression my whole life, dating back to my earliest memories when I was 4. I didn't have the word for it, but, retrospectively, it was obvious I was depressed. And so I was tired of being depressed. And it was always underlying everything. Even my accomplishments, having children, having my beautiful dream home, no matter what was occurring in my life, there was always depression. At times it was completely incapacitating, and sometimes it was just sort of underlying. And I functioned. I've been to multiple, lost count, psychiatrists, therapists. I was on multiple medications throughout my life, sometimes not at all. It culminated around, it started to be at its worst around 2007. I'd spend weeks in bed, not able to brush my teeth, wash my hair. Sometimes I stayed in the same clothes for days and maybe even weeks. I hate to admit that, but I had no energy. I couldn't function. I was always in complete despair. Around 2013, my last psychiatrist, he had me on 5 psych meds, which did nothing for me. People at that time said I was like walking death. I was walking around like a zombie. And I had finally had it. I was always suicidal. Suicide was always an option in my mind. And it got to the point where I just didn't want to live anymore because it was so painful. And I came to a point where I really thought, who would want to live like this? And I could find no solutions. And so I told the psychiatrist that, this part's funny to me now. I told him I was done. The medication didn't help. It's never helped. And I'm going off all 5 medications. And he said, do not do that. You're going to die. You'll have a seizure. You'll have a heart attack. You can't do that. And I said, I don't care. I'd rather be dead. And then he informed me that I was going to kill myself if I did this. And at that point, I really didn't care. I was just done. So I went off all the medications, which I'm very careful about telling people that because I don't want anyone else to do that. It's very dangerous. And yet nothing happened. So I don't know if the universe was interceding or what was going on, but I prepared to have a heart attack or have a seizure, die. But I didn't. It was kind of amazing. And from that point on, I had discovered quantum physics. I had discovered the miracle of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. And all the decades of therapists and psychiatrists I had, none of them ever told me about neuroplasticity, that you can literally rewire your brain. So I encountered that information beginning around 2013. I read this amazing book by Gary Zukov. It was written in 1979, and it was called The Dancing Woolly Masters, A Layperson's Guide to Quantum Physics. I am in no way mathematically oriented. I had to take science classes in college and I dropped out of them because I'm not science minded. But he explains so clearly what quantum physics has to do with our mental health, because for the first time I was educated about energy. Underlying my depression was a terrible fear of death. I was brought up in a fundamentalist Baptist church that told me that I was going to hell if I didn't believe certain things like Jesus is the only way to God, which even as a child I found preposterous. And I couldn't believe, and I kept being told you just have to have blind faith. And my attitude was God gave me a brain for a reason, and I was using that brain, and yet I couldn't resolve. I still had this terrible fear that maybe I would go to hell. So when I encountered quantum physics and Gary Zukov and like similar books, that I discovered that I'm energy, that I contain electrons and photons, and that all of us are connected to all energy throughout the cosmos, and that the death of my body wasn't going to be the end. And that began to give me hope. Like maybe it's okay. Maybe there's a reason not to be afraid. And the most powerful thing of it all was when I discovered Donald Hebb, it was 1949. He was a neuropsychologist, and he talked about neuroplasticity and the ability to rewire our brains, but it didn't make it mainstream. It's really only making it mainstream now. I see things on television, interviews and things, people writing books about this, talking about this. That changed my life. When I discovered, and actually I should say this, it was 2013, I prepared to end my life. I bought a kit. I researched how to kill myself for months. And I bought this kit from Canada that guaranteed a painless death. And I had put all the elements of it together. And I was sitting in my kitchen. It was on the kitchen table, and nobody was home. Nobody was going to be home for a long time. And at that very moment, a thought came from somewhere that said, wait, maybe there's a way that you haven't found yet to heal your brain. And that's when I encountered Gary Zukov's book. I Googled alternative ways to heal depression, which had never occurred to me before. And I encountered neuroplasticity, I encountered quantum physics, and I stopped. I decided, okay, I'm going to give it one more chance. And if I still can't find a solution, I can go back to the suicide option. And there began a series of events with the guidance of someone I call now my spiritual mentor, who helped me rewire my brain. And we developed methods for doing that, changing my thoughts. The most revolutionary thing for me of all was when I learned that I'm not my thoughts, that we are the observer of our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. And so if my thought says, you're a worthless human being, you should die, I don't have to listen. I mean, I had those kinds of thoughts. It's not true. And it's just a thought. So I began to counter all my negative thoughts, like life is hopeless, my life has no meaning, everybody hates me, I'm a terrible person. For every bad thought I had, I would counter it with a positive thought, like you are a worthwhile person. Your life does have meaning. And I put the thoughts on index cards, on post-it notes. I put them everywhere that I could possibly put them to remind myself, bathroom mirror, car dash. And when I would see the thought, if no one was around, I would say it out loud. And because of that, because of how that works, my neurons in my brain started firing differently. And Donald had the neuropsychologist had said, neurons that fire together repeatedly wire together. So over the course of just a few months, I rewired my brain, and it changed my neurochemistry. And I always get a little choked up when I think about this, because I always like want to cry right now, because it's such a beautiful thing that happened. And I haven't been on an antidepressant since 2014. I haven't had anything close to depression, not even close, since 2014. And it doesn't mean that bad things still happen in my life. Sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes I have grief about certain things, but there's a demarcation between sadness and depression. You don't have to go to depression because you're sad. And then I implemented all kinds of other things in my life to ensure my mental health. I lost 60 pounds. I moved to the mountains for 2 years by myself. I left a terrible abusive marriage. I hiked every day. The first time I tried to hike, I was out of breath in like 50 feet. It was ridiculous. And I ended up hiking average between 6 and 15 miles a day. I changed my nutritional habits. I got very in touch with my spiritual nature, and I'm well now. And my book is about, I want other people to know that it's possible. I want people to know that they don't have to be depressed. And I'm not going to say people shouldn't take medication, because I know it helps people sometimes. Sometimes it saves people's lives. I choose not to, because I can create my own neurochemistry. I can create my own serotonin and dopamine and all that sort of thing. So that's my story. And I have a wonderful, like amazing, beautiful life now. I mean, I wake up every morning and can't believe it. And I'm joyful. And that's the other thing. People strive to be happy. Happy is a transient emotion. It's based on what happens. Joy is an internal condition. It's a impenetrable condition that I have. Nothing that happens can take my joy away. And peace.
That's what I'm talking about. Indeed. Nobody's taking it away. That's right. That's right indeed. They can try to grab all they want. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. They can try and grab, but no keepy. That's right indeed, because she's the keepy. That's right indeed. That's right
You
indeed.
have a way with words.
Oh, yeah, that's right indeed. Sometimes they combine together and they make up new ones, and they sometimes sound awful. Sometimes the archaic awful of A, it's awesome, and sometimes the current awful, like, oh man, don't say that again. But hey, my goodness, congratulations, though, overcoming that darn depression and those darn suicidal thoughts, and glad you're still here. That's right, indeed. And I'm sure hundreds of folks are happy that you're still here, indeed. You're able to actually turn that pain into more power because you decided to join the business of immortality by publishing your book. And I hear it was a 8-year journey, right?
Yes, it was. And also, I want to add that for someone contemplating reading my book, I share specifically what I did. I share specifically the brain rewiring methods. I explain quantum physics at a level that I can understand, which is not, I'm not very brilliant about science. And I share specifically my journey, what happened, how my brain got rewired, or how my brain got wired for depression, how I unwired depression, how I wired it for joy and not depression. And I tell very specific. So it's meant to help people to explain what they can do too.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed.
And
Something
here
for
it
the
is.
layman, right?
Here it is. Woo. 8
That's
years in
right,
the
indeed.
making.
Right, indeed. 8 years in the making. So what helped you finally get over your fear and finally hit the publish button?
Yeah. Yeah. That was quite something.
Yeah, so what helped you to get over your fear and hit the publish button?
Yeah, there was a little anxiety producing because I had moments where I tell the dirt about myself. So anybody who might be listening who thinks, "Oh no, I've done such terrible things and I could never be forgiven." I used to think you should feel guilty. That's your punishment for the bad things you've done. And the turning point for me about the guilt was somebody told me, if you do not forgive yourself, you will teach your children not to forgive themselves. So I tell dirt about myself. I did some not good things. And yet here I am. The main thing people have said to me about after reading it is that it was courageous. The book itself was compelling. It was easy to read. And back to where I started to say a little fear and anxiety before I pushed the publish button, I was like, oh my God, my friends are gonna hate me after they people are gonna hate me after they read some of the things I've done. But so far, nobody hates me. Well, at least no one has told me that they hate me. So it's like, oh my God, I'm revealing all this dirt about myself. I had this one guy, he's a friend, his name's Gene. He said, oh, you should not tell your story, casting pearls before swine, and people could use it against you. And I was like, wait a minute. What's the worst that could happen? Somebody could say something mean, like, so what's the worst that's going to happen? Somebody might say something not nice. Like, well, I can deal with that. I actually don't care because I know
Yeah,
my story.
it's true. 'Cause that's one of the major things. Like even another reason why stand-up comedians use their pain for funny stories and turn them into funny stories. Because hey, once they
Yeah.
put it out there, folks can't use it against them in the future because they
That's
already.
a good yeah, that's a good point. And like some of the things that I did and that are in my story, it's ridiculous. The things when you have depression and you aren't mentally well, I'd say most of the things that I did were reactions rather than responses. And everything we are as humans wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And so when you're in the throes of despair and pain, you do things to make yourself feel better. And they're not always, as my book will tell you, they're not very well thought out a lot of the time. So, yeah, and some of the stuff I did is just ridiculous. Like in retrospect, it's ridiculous what I did. So, but I live a good life now.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, any words of encouragement for those looking to write their story, even though they too may feel like they're stabbing themselves because of all the painful thoughts they're reliving?
Well, the original reason I decided to start writing it was I wanted to explain to my children what happened, why the things happened that happened. The second purpose was I really wanted to help people. I wanted to make a contribution in this world before I checked out. And your story is likely to help people. Brene Brown said, your story is your way home. I say, write it, even if you don't publish it, because I learned so much about myself. And so what if people know the dirt about you? So what? If it helps people, then it's worth it. And it'll help you too. Like I was saying to you earlier, even if you're not a writer, I say write your life story because you'll learn so much. And also, it's likely to change your perception of other people who've been in your life. Like my father, for instance, my father was abusive. And I haven't been angry at him for decades, but more distance from him. And I became aware of why he was the way he was. And I would think that I had already forgiven him, but I forgave him even more as I was writing the book and thinking about his upbringing. And oddly, I had half an hour FaceTime phone call with him. He's in a nursing home now because he's had 7 strokes. And while I was
Ooh.
talking to him and seeing all his mean is gone, I just felt compassion for him, that he is where he is now, and he's lost all of his intellect that he used to beat people down. He can't do that anymore. And I'm actually going to go see him in California. I haven't seen him for years. Pretty soon here.
Uh, that's good. Definitely to pay him a visit indeed, because my goodness, I guess 7 strokes will do that to you. That sounds painful. My God.
He's not in pain. He's sort of oblivious. So,
Nah. Well, I guess if you don't know anything, it's like, oh yeah, pain. What is that? It
mhm.
doesn't exist. It's like,
Well,
okay.
he's not suffering. He told me he's just bored.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, better bored than painful.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
and
talking about.
it also gave me a perspective on my poor mother. She was a troubled soul and she was a terrible mother. But as I'm writing it and I'm thinking about what she went through, total forgiveness for her. So, and also I've been forgiven. So, and I've done some bad things. I've been forgiven. So how can I not forgive them? And how can I not forgive anyone, really?
Heck yeah. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Forgive others, and you too will be forgiven indeed. That's right indeed. That power of forgiveness. That's right indeed. Makes you feel like a feather again, as opposed to carrying around a giant boulder of emotional baggage. That's right indeed. That's right
Yeah,
indeed.
the guy I referred to who was my spiritual mentor, when I had to go through the process of forgiving my previous husband. My current husband is an amazing, wonderful, sweet, and kind person, but he was very abusive, and I detail it in my book. And he did really terrible things to me, and I thought I could never forgive him, never. And so when I would talk to my spiritual mentor about it, he explained to me what forgiveness really is. And forgiveness is just detaching from the energy of unforgiveness. I'm like, I can do that. And it was a process. It took me quite a while. He died finally. It was a process, but I detached from the energy of unforgiveness. That's as simple as it is. It really is that simple. So, and I want to share that with people too.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness, so since you've been on a few interviews and going to be on some more interviews in the future, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're on these interviews?
That's an interesting question. I guess maybe how did you do it? Because that's the whole purpose of my book, is to tell people how they can do it.
Ah, that's right. That's right indeed. And I'm sure there's a lot of hows.
Yeah.
So many howies.
Yeah. And it's very clear in my book how I did it. And one of the things I do worry a little bit about is when someone reads my book, it required effort, a lot of effort on my part. And somebody reading my book might say, I'm depressed. I don't have the energy to do all that, but it's one step at a time, one thing at a time, little baby steps I took until my energy increased, and then I could do more, and then I could do more. And the other thing, what I worry about a little bit, is somebody saying, oh my God, that's a lot of effort. I'm just going to take my pill. That's too much work, but it's worth it. I have this joyous, beautiful life, and I can't even believe that I have the life that I have. I never dreamed I could have such a good life.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. So my goodness, so if this wonderful book of yours, Out of the Darkness, if it was a food, what would it be and why?
Well, the whole title is Out of the Darkness, Aligning Science and Spirit to Overcome Depression. If it were a food, hmm, could it be two foods?
Sure.
Okay, salmon and cauliflower.
Uh,
How's that? I've never had that question.
There you go. There you go. Salmon and cauliflower.
Or fettuccine.
Is it because there's cream inside of the book at the end when you can finally
I
realize,
don't
oh, you can do
know.
it?
Fettuccine's delicious.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Well, the beautiful thing is, once folks are done eating that dish, here you got some more dishes cooking. So, what are you excited about for the upcoming year? Here you got 2 more books in the works.
Well, one would be relatively easy, I think, to do is a workbook to follow up my book. So to help people go through the exercises and little and journal as they're going through them, what they're experiencing. That one won't be difficult. The other book that I'm thinking about, I moved to the mountains in 2014 when I left the abusive husband. And part of my healing came from being in nature and being in the woods. Transformative. I've always been a nature girl, but I've abandoned that for 30 years probably. And I journaled while I was there about the healing power of being in nature and hiking and all that. So I'm thinking about writing a book called titled A Year in the Woods, something like that. And the other third, this is crazy. I had a publisher who knew my story suggest to me that I write a book loosely titled How to Spot a Sociopath Before You Marry One. And but I'm not so certain I want to do that because I will have to go back and relive some really traumatic stuff. And so I haven't made up my mind about that. But originally I thought I'd write one book and I'd never write another book again. And the whole time I was writing my book, I'm never doing this again. But now I feel like I could do it.
So no escape. That's what I'm talking about. No escape. She's got the confidence now, baby.
Well, once you do it, you kind of know how to do it. My first draft of the book was 500 pages of free association. And now I know more like I could create an outline for a book and I don't have to write 500 pages of free association.
Oh yeah, that way we'll have to dig through it as much. It's
Yeah.
like, wait, why is this story in the middle? Shouldn't this be at the beginning? Why is this in the
Well, that's
beginning? This should be
actually
it.
the editor I work with, Gina Mazza, who's a talented, brilliant editor. She took what was like the middle of the book and put it as the first chapter. So I was writing chronologically, but we needed to capture a reader's attention. And the very beginning of my book is me waking up in an emergency room with a IV running through my body because I was having this. Well, I did come to think of it, I did have a seizure. I had one. I almost forgot that I said I didn't have a seizure. I did have one seizure, but I was already in a hospital when I had it, and I woke up to Ativan running through my veins in an IV. That's how the book starts, and it was after my plan to kill myself.
That's why folks need to bring on a good editor, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
Yes,
Helps
he
turn
was
your
a,
mess
he was
into a
a,
message.
he was amazing. Gina Mazza. If you ever need an editor, look for Gina Mazza. She's gonna love that I brought her name up in this.
Yeah, that's right, indeed. Glamorous Gina. You love to see it. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. With all the magnificence, indeed. That's right, indeed. So that's right. So we got some stuff to look forward to. Oh, are any of these books going to be in audio by any chance?
We've been talking about that. I have a follower who's blind, and she really wants to be able to read my book. So I've talked to Frank about it. I think I should, but we're not sure yet.
Ah, hey, you should read your own book. Go on a hiking trip for a week. Rent a studio for a week. Bring a lots of water. Record the book. That's right, indeed. Bring some Kleenexes too, so that you have pride to relive it all over again.
Yeah,
Right.
I've reread my book a couple times, and for readers, you want something emotional, I still cry when I read certain parts.
There we go. So we now need to flood Debra's inbox so that way she can get into the studio and record a book. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. We need to pop out of her random drawers like a jack in the box and be like, "Hey, when's that audiobook coming out?"
Yeah.
Pop
And
out
by
of
the way, I mean, you right now it's available. I'm creating a website for the book, but it's not done yet. You could buy it on Amazon, where I buy everything, including my cat food.
meow.
I have 2 black cats.
There we go. That's right, indeed. And who said they were unlucky? She's an award-winning author.
Also, probably I should say I have a existing website that is being edited, but my website, if someone wants to connect with me, is DebraHolz.com. So that's DebraHolz.com, DebraHolz.com.
Sounds good indeed. Sounds good indeed. Definitely going to ask for that information again. So we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive.
Oh
And
no, I'm scared. I'm sorry, I'm not. I'm
oh,
not
you'll
scared.
be fine. You'll be
Okay.
fine. Don't worry. You just might wake up with bunny ears and the corn cob in the morning. You'll be fine. Anyways, you wake up tomorrow and you're at 25 again, but you're still in 2023. What advice would you give to yourself?
Have compassion for yourself. I was very hard on myself.
There you go, folks. That's right indeed. So you heard that right, folks. Find a giant cupcake, jump on top of it, get the icing. Call that compassion. That's right indeed. Be in a soft zone, be like, yay, I'm swimming in the icing. This is compassion.
Yeah, I
Take
think
care of
I had a lot of shame just about who I was. And also, shame was really taught to me as a child, and it affected what I did and how I lived. And so I definitely have compassion for myself now. And that's another thing. To heal from whatever emotional trauma or mental illness you have to have compassion for yourself, because as I wrote the book, it became clear that everything I did made sense given what I had to work with. And once I saw that it made sense and why I did the things I did, I had compassion for myself. And I also had compassion for my mother and my father. I ended up feeling compassion for the husband who died. I was with him when he took his last breath. And to see someone in that diminished condition, how could you be mad at them anymore?
Yep. That's right indeed. Right indeed. Definitely right about that. Definitely right about that indeed. So that's right, folks. Have more compassion for yourself. That's right indeed. You can do it. That's right indeed. You can do it. You'll be better off for it. That's right. Name of the game is be better, not butter. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Because that butter melts under pressure. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. You definitely want to be better indeed. And I know folks will be feeling even better once they snag copies of your book and keep up with your journey. So for those need to do just that and more, what's the best way for folks to do so?
What's the best way for someone to get the book?
Yeah, and keep up with your journey.
Amazon. Amazon, if you just put in my name, Debra Holz, Holz, no T, my book will pop up.
There you
And
go.
you mentioned it, but Frank's my publicist. You know Frank Zakari. It hit #1 bestseller in 6 categories on Amazon in 24 or 48 hours, which he says pretty unheard of. And also, as you mentioned, it won an award even before it was published, national award. And the category I'm proudest of is it hit the neuro-linguistic category. So apparently it's because people liked it and ordered it.
So you're hypnotizing people in this book. Okay, all right. Doing that NLP, huh?
And I'm not so sure about hypnotizing anybody, but apparently And already I've gotten feedback from people who've struggled with depression who say that it's really inspired them, that there's hope. And that's pretty much the whole goal. Although, it's really funny. When I started writing the book, as I said, I wrote it because I wanted to explain to my children what happened. And both of them say they'll never read my book. So it's okay. They're like, Mom, I'm telling you right now, I'm not reading your book. I'm like, okay, that's okay. I think eventually their curiosity will get the better of them.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, what the hell, man? If my mom wrote a book, I'd freaking read it.
Maybe they'll read it after I'm dead or something. But anyway, but the book's purpose is there. So whether they read it or not.
That's right, indeed. Well, there you have it, folks. You heard it from the good Deb herself. That's right, indeed. Cop some cop business, right, indeed. If you know somebody who's having a down day, or they may be down and having some kind of depression, or they just need a little pick me up and some encouragement to keep going and keep going north, indeed. Gift it to them as copy. Snag a copy for yourself. That's right, indeed. That's right. Take a selfie with the book too for bonus points. Send it to Deb. Be like, hey, I'm out the darkness, y'all. That's right. Actually, better yet, take two selfies. One with the lights off, and then one with the lights on. That way it'll be even better. That's right. You can let folks know that you're out of the darkness thanks to the delightful Deb herself, indeed. So, any parting words before I close up shop, Deb?
I love your laugh and I love your style. This is the most interesting interview I've had so far. No offense, Frank.
Thanks a bunch for investing your time by listening to this wonderful podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you really did, do me a solid and leave a review or share this episode with at least 3 people that you think would get some value out of today's content. Advance others to advance yourself.